Welcome to my world history notes, where I read from the book I wrote to teach homeschoolers world history. A Bible believer looks at world history. You may not agree with my conclusions, and you might even be offended by some of them, but you should at least be conversant in these subjects about world history. You can purchase my book on lulu.com, amazon.com, or at the Bible Baptist bookstore, or you can just follow me here. And if you do follow me here, please be subscribed to my channel. Um, all right, so I'm going to begin today. We're going to go back from my previous talk to Great Britain, to England. So that being said, what I said about Satan trying to pull nations together to one big mass under control. Um, in Great Britain, James' first term for Scotland, England, Wales, and Ireland, in 1699, Parliament enacted the Disbanding Act, limiting involvement of their king, William II, in European wars and reducing the standing army to 7,000 men. The Act of Settlement, followed in 1701, made all future kings Protestant by law and were not to leave the country without Parliament's permission. They could not engage England in war for defense of their foreign possessions. They could not grant office to foreigners. The act asserted the right of ministers to be held responsible for the actions of the king. Imagine holding the president's cabinet responsible for his actions legally. In 1701, James II had died in France, and someone named James Edward, a Stuart called the Old Pretender, assumed the throne. Recognized by Louis XIV of France, he never actually ruled England, and his efforts to assume control with the French help failed. Queen Anne, reigning from 1702 to 1714, was the last Stuart to reign over England, with James I being the first. There was a rebellion in Scotland called the 45 between 1745 and 46, when the Old Pretender's son, Charles Edward Stuart, also known as Bonnie Prince Charlie, or the Young Pretender, raised an army of 2,000 and marched on Edinburgh, capturing it. He then attempted to invade England. This Jacobite rebellion, named so for things to do with James I, Stuart of England, was called Jacobite, as James is the English version of the Hebrew name Jacob. It ended with historic and is disastrous for the Scots, the Battle of Culloden in 1746. As I pointed out before, England was involved in both the War of the Austrian Succession and the War of the Spanish Succession against France. Italy continued to be a battleground for more powerful neighbors in the 18th century or 1700s, with every war seeming to include some bloodshed on that peninsula. While the Turkish Ottoman Empire fought with various European powers, Persia, modern day Iran, went through some warring up and down of its own. It nearly collapsed in the early 18th century, being invaded by Afghanistan, losing some of its provinces to Russia and Turkey. Persia's fortunes were revived under one of the greatest soldiers in its history, Nadir Quli Beg, or Nadir Shah. He is considered the last great Asian conqueror, driving out the Afghans, defeating the Turks several times, defeating the Russians, and conquering Mughal India. His empire collapsed at his death in 1747. As part of the War of the Austrian Succession, the First Carnatic War between 1744 and 1748, and the Second Carnatic War between 1749 and 1754, saw the French East India Company and the British East India Company fighting for control of India, using the armies and navies of their governments whose fortunes were linked with them to fight each other. Okay, we'll stop there today. I'm going to go to Africa and the Americas next. And I hope you'll enjoy this, and that you will study world history to be conversant in it, and even disagreeing with me, that you'll have your own opinion. All right. Thank you very much and have a great day.